Yeah, so apparently, as everybody's aware, America and Iran are currently in peacefire, ceasefire talks. They're currently in ceasefire talks in Pakistan. Um, and now I've said before that I don't necessarily think that these are going to go anywhere. I mean, I think the conditions on the ground in terms of like you know, who was succeeding, who was failing, was firmly in the hands of Iran. They were able to maintain control over the Strait of Hormuz. They were able to continue to send missiles with increasing accuracy throughout the entire conflict. They still had hundreds of thousands of drones left that they could shoot at the Gulf state countries. Um, they had already gotten sanctions relief by being at war with America and disrupting the global economy enough that America was too scared to, keep the sanctions on. They wanted to free that oil to keep prices down to some extent. Like, so they basically, Iran achieved almost everything they wanted from negotiations before through military means in practice. And so basically, I would say Iran holds like all of the actual cards when it comes to material conditions on the ground in terms of the conflict. Um, However, America is a petty little bitch who cannot take even the mildest amount of uh, like appearance of loss of like they can't even slightly feel like they even appear weak or unable to accomplish their goals or whatever. So America's natural precondition to always rejecting anything that doesn't seem like an overt win to them is likely going to lead to a lot of problems here in these negotiations. And I think that we'll see that in this video. Because the fact of the matter is America just doesn't have the material actual conditions on the ground in terms of the battle, uh, like on the battlefield, to be able to ask for the things that it's probably going to ask for. And because of those conflicts, I think we're probably going to, this ceasefire is probably going to end up just being a temporary one where America rearms and then starts rebombing Iran again. And then we'll be back, back to phase one again. But at least that's my prediction. But anyway, let's go ahead and see if JD Vance has what he's going to say. This is after the first 21 hours of, I think, negotiations that they had yesterday. I'm pretty sure.
The good news. The bad news is that we have not reached an agreement. Iranians, that's the good news. The bad news is that we have not reached an agreement. And I think that's bad news for Iran much more than it's bad news for the United States of America. So we go back to the United States having not come to an agreement. We've made very clear what our red lines are, what things we're willing to accommodate them on, and what things we're not willing to accommodate them on. And we've made that as clear as we possibly could, and they have chosen not to accept our terms. Questions?
Sir, Nick Robertson from CNN. Precisely what have they rejected here? Can you help us understand it a little bit?
Well, I won't go into all the details because I don't want to negotiate in public after we've negotiated for 21 hours in private. But the simple fact is that we need to see an affirmative commitment that they will not seek a nuclear weapon, and they will not seek the tools that would enable them to quickly achieve a nuclear weapon. That is the core goal of the President of the United States, and that's what we've tried to achieve through these negotiations.
See, I'm a little bit surprised here because I think that that's something that Iran would be willing to submit to. Now, it depends on how they're wording that portion of it. If they're saying you can't have any nuclear enrichment whatsoever, even for civilian purposes, I don't think they're going to go along with that. I think they would be willing probably to go back down from their 60% enrichment back down to like 20 or whatever it was before Trump threw out the JCPOA. Um, but I just don't think I don't think they're going to give it up entirely. But so I think that's the best that we're probably going to get from that regard. And honestly, that should be if we can even get that, that would be amazing because to be quite frank, I think that they need to race to a bomb as soon as possible if they don't want this shit to keep happening every like couple years or whatever. Because I don't think that America is going to stop. Like assuming that it does, like, yeah, I think that America is probably just going to keep trying to fuck with and destabilize Iran for the foreseeable future until they're just like physically unable to do so.
Again, their nuclear program, such as it is, the enrichment facilities that they had before, they've been destroyed. But the simple question is, do we see a fundamental commitment of will for the Iranians not to develop a nuclear weapon, not just now, not just 2 years from now, but for the long term? We haven't seen that yet. We hope that we will. Jen.
Was there a framework on anything? And also, did the Iranian frozen assets come up, and did you reach any conclusions on those frozen assets?
We talked about all those issues, Jen, and we talked about a number of issues beyond that. And so certainly those things came up. But again, we just could not get to a situation where the Iranians were willing to accept our terms. I think that we were quite flexible. We were quite accommodating. The president told us, you need to come here in good faith and make your best effort to get a deal. We did that. And unfortunately, we weren't able to make any headway. Preston.
Well, I think they also just fundamentally, I think that to some extent they understand, you know, the power that Iran holds in terms of the battlefield or whatever. But I do think that they are somewhat delusional in thinking that, like, I do think that they buy into their own propaganda to some extent, where they are not so, like, I think that they sometimes think that they have a lot more like cards than they actually do in this situation. Like, whether you keep bombing Iran for the indefinite future, the outcome of the war is going to be the same. Even if you go back to war with them in a couple weeks and continue doing exactly what you were doing, and even expand strikes to energy infrastructure or whatever, right? Like, the outcome will be the same. Iran will just hunker down. It'll, you know, just wait it out, and it'll just continue causing global, like, damage to the global economy, and continue impacting cost on America, and like, as long as America continues attacking them. So, like, eventually America will have to just say, okay, we're done, like, for real this time or whatever. And the conditions, I think, for negotiations will only get worse and worse as the longer it goes on, for from America's perspective, I mean.
President, how often did you communicate with President Trump throughout the negotiations? There were reports that there were multiple rounds where there were breaks in between negotiations. How often did you communicate with the president throughout those rounds, and what was he saying as you were going through these negotiations that you said fell short?
Yeah, obviously we were talking to the president consistently. I don't know how many times we talked to him, a half dozen times, a dozen times over the past 21 hours. We obviously also talked to Admiral Cooper, to Pete, to Marco, to the entire national security team. We talked to Scott Bessent a number of times. So look, we were constantly in communication with the team because we were negotiating in good faith. And we leave here with a very simple proposal, a method of understanding that is our final and best offer. We'll see if the Iranians accept it. Thank you.
The Strait of Hormuz.
Did you go back to Netanyahu at all today? What about the Strait of Hormuz?
I thought it was going to be a little bit longer than that, because the video was like 6 minutes. What, do they have coverage on it, or is it just news after that, or just like ads? We'll see.
Did they give you any indication of this?
You've been watching Vice President JD Vance speak in Islamabad, Pakistan, where he has been participating in negotiations with Iranian officials over the ongoing conflict. We're going to take a short break. You're watching CBS News 24/7.
Okay, yeah, I think it's done. I think it's just ads or something after this. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I said from the beginning, I don't think this is going to be a lasting ceasefire. I think that I think that America will just use this time to rearm. I think there's been some reporting out that America is rearming, you know, all of their ships, and potentially like Israel and stuff right now. Which, I mean, also just kind of goes to show you that, like, America was just physically unable to continue the defensive operations and offensive operations, I guess, as well, at the rate that they were before the ceasefire. Um, I still don't know if it was the best idea from Iran's perspective to accept this temporary pause for negotiations. I'm going to be honest. I'm still not sure about that. And I am really starting to lean towards that was China or some other country's influence that had them kind of maybe force them into it as well, because I think they would have been much better off just continuing to impact, like, to cause impact to America, like past the point where they are running out of interceptors and stuff. So yeah, we'll see where all this goes. I just don't have a whole lot of faith that this is going to actually lead to any sort of lasting peace. But anyway, let's move on.